Yes, ladies and gentlemen, episode 18 of Pokemon Horizons titled The Sky's the Limit for Flying Pikachu just dropped, and this episode is one of the best episodes of the series so far. Here we learn about Captain Pikachu and the history of the Brave Asagi, so let's talk about it. Last episode, when Roy faced off against Captain Pikachu, Pikachu was able to dodge mid-air against Fuecoco's tackle, so Roy is talking with Liko and Dot to try and figure out why and how he was able to do that. The conversation naturally leads to Captain Pikachu and how he became a captain, so our heroes decide that they want to record a video to learn about Captain Pikachu. Liko and Roy apparently have a channel called the Liko Roy channel, which is adorable, where they're trying to record the video. They try to ask Friede about Captain Pikachu first, but he's coy about it and doesn't answer. So they try going to the other members of the ship, in Molly and Murdoch, who only know that Cap rarely gets hurt and he isn't a picky eater. The first person to really give them any real info is Ludlow, who tells them that without Cap, the Brave Asagi and the Rising Volt Tacklers wouldn't have been a thing. When they go ask Orla, she lets on that she knows the story since she was one of the first members of the Brave Asagi and a childhood friend of Friede's, but she wants everyone else to know the story too, so she calls everyone into the meeting room to learn about how Friede and Cap met, and even though Friede is reluctant at first, he eventually begins to tell the story. Friede was originally from Kanto and he was a genius professor, but at some point he had quit being a professor in a lab and just started hanging out with Ludlow and fishing all day. That's because he felt like he knew everything there was to know about Pokemon and was feeling lost about what he wanted to do. That's when one day out of the blue, Liko's mom Lucia called him up. She was his teacher in Kanto, but she had moved to Paldea after getting married and was now a mother. She was also curious as to why Friede had quit being a professor, and when he explains to her why, she tells him to meet someone the next morning. Before the crack of dawn the next day, he arrives at a hill where Lucia shows him a Pikachu. While at first he isn't interested since he feels like he knows everything about Pikachu, he's shocked when the Pikachu ends up super high in the air and is using his tail to slowly descend, almost like he's flying. She explains to him that he is famous around those parts as Flying Pikachu, which Friede had never seen or heard of, so it gets him fired up to research this Pokemon. Friede and Pikachu don't get along at first. However, Friede is persistent and slowly gains the trust of Pikachu by doing things like bringing him food. We see that later he has figured out how Pikachu flies. He's using Volt Tackle to generate electric current and then uses those along with jumping from his tail to get super high in the air. Then, when in the air, he uses his tail almost as a propeller to hover and allow him to fly. However, this is also when he realizes he doesn't know as much as he thought he did. He doesn't understand why this Pikachu trains so hard for the ability to fly. Eventually, Friede decides that he won't learn anything by observing. He needs to get into it and try to understand Pikachu, so he uses his Charizard to go flying in the sky, the same time Pikachu begins to use Volt Tackle to sky. We get this phenomenal animation of Charizard flying towards and then pulling straight up to the sky. When they reach the peak, he sees that he's higher than almost a morning sunset and sees a phenomenal view. He realizes that that view and the feeling that it provides is why Pikachu is trying so hard to fly. However, Pikachu loses his balance in the air and goes crashing down to the ground, only for Charizard and Friede to save him. Friede jumps down to the ground and thanks Pikachu. It showed him a horizon, hence the title of the show, that Friede had never seen before. He realized that the world is vast, so he wants Pikachu to join him and learn about this vast world, reigniting his passion again. Pikachu agrees, so he captures Pikachu. Then, he asks Ludlow if he could use his regular fishing boat and calls Orla, his childhood friend, who he thinks is the best mechanic in the world, to turn this regular fishing boat into an airship. Even though that sounds crazy, she says she'll try and eventually creates the ship we know today. The boat was originally called the Asagi, but after Orla's modification, Friede thinks it looks brave, so it decides to call it the Brave Asagi. After creating the ship, Orla doesn't really want payment for the ship. Rather, she's also bored with her job, so she wants to join him on his adventure. And when she asks if he'll be the captain of the ship, he says that he wants it to be Pikachu. Pikachu, using his Volt Tackle to fly, is also why the team is called the Rising Volt Tacklers. So with Ludlow, Orla, Friede, and now Captain Pikachu, the Brave Asagi took off and became what it became today. Both Murdoch and Molly also didn't know the story, so they're also impressed with the story. Liko is however shocked. Her mom was Friede's teacher? He says that without Liko's mom, he wouldn't have ever met Cap, so he owes her. This to me explains why Liko was able to join the Volt Tacklers so easily. The kids decide that even though they have footage of Cap's story, they won't release it to the public. This is also when Liko decides that the next time she sees her mother, she'll be telling her about her Sprigatito. The episode then comes to an end as the ship begins to arrive near the Galar region. This episode was fantastic. It gave us a great background story into Cap, Friede, and Orla, as well as the brave Asagi, while tying in Lucia's relationship with Friede and how it ties together as a whole. It showed us the motivation behind and how the Volt Tacklers came to be. It does a lot to explain many portions of the show too, including the title of the series. I also love the visual in this episode. I'm not sure who the animation director was or the storyboard artist was for this episode, but we got some gorgeous colors and shots all throughout this episode. I was telling someone this earlier, but this series seems to be, production-wise, in a much healthier state than Pokemon Journeys was. And the fruits of that are in episodes like this, where almost everything comes together to make a phenomenal episode. There are still a lot of questions the series needs to have answered, mainly regarding the first episode and Liko's grandmother. Things like, how did the explorers know about the pendant? Why did Liko's mom send the brave Asagi to pick up Liko from school? Did she know that the explorers were coming after the pendant? If so, how? What's her relationship with them? And Liko's grandmother has also been shrouded in mystery this entire series, which is why they're heading to Galar. What does she know? I can't wait to see where the entire story goes. But as for this episode, this is one you guys shouldn't miss. Go ahead and check it out. If you have seen this episode, let me know in the comments. What did you guys think of it? Also be sure to like, share, subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at TheRealPDGaming. And that's it. I will talk to you guys later. Peace.